Ji-won wiped the grease from his hands and stared at the broken ventilation panel. Another repair job that nobody else wanted to do. That was his life now, fixing things in the forgotten corners of Hangar 7, an orbital station that most people had stopped caring about decades ago. He was tired. Not just the kind of tired that came from working 12-hour shifts, but the deep exhaustion that settled into your bones when you realized your life hadn't turned out the way you planned. Ji-won had dreamed of being a starship designer once. He had studied hard, passed all his exams, and applied to every major company in human space, but dreams didn't pay bills, and rejection letters didn't fix broken equipment. So here he was, 32 years old and crawling through dusty maintenance tunnels on a station that barely functioned. The ventilation panel led to a section of the hangar that wasn't on his usual route. Ji-won frowned as he squeezed through the narrow passage. His tablet showed this area as Storage Bay 17, marked as sealed since before he started working here. Nobody had mentioned it in any of the maintenance briefings. When he finally emerged into the bay, Ji-won froze. The space was massive, easily 3 times larger than a standard hangar. And sitting in the center, covered in years of accumulated dust, was a starship. It wasn't like any ship he had seen before. The design was old, really old, with smooth curves and a hull that looked almost handmade. Modern ships were all sharp angles and modular components built by automated factories. This thing looked like someone had actually crafted it with care and attention. Ji-won walked closer, his footsteps echoing in the empty bay. The dust was so thick that he couldn't see what color the hull had originally been. He reached out and wiped a section clean, revealing dark metal underneath. There were no corporation logos, no registration numbers, nothing that identified where this ship had come from. The cargo ramp was partially open, stuck halfway as if someone had left in a hurry. Ji-won hesitated for a moment, then climbed inside. His heart was pounding now, not from fear but from excitement. This was the most interesting thing that had happened to him in years. The interior was dark, but emergency lighting flickered on as he moved deeper into the ship. The corridors were narrow and practical, with exposed pipes and wiring that you could actually access and repair. Modern ships hid everything behind sealed panels that required special tools to open. This ship was built by people who expected things to break and wanted to fix them quickly. Ji-won made his way to the bridge. It was small and cramped, with only 2 seats and controls that looked almost primitive compared to modern interfaces. But there was something beautiful about its simplicity. Every switch and button had a clear purpose. Nothing was hidden behind touchscreens or voice commands. On the pilot's seat, he found a piece of paper. Actual paper, yellowed with age and covered in handwritten Korean text. Ji-won picked it up carefully, afraid it might crumble in his hands. The writing was neat and precise, the kind you only saw from people who had learned to write before everything became digital. He read the note slowly, translating the slightly old-fashioned Korean in his head. To whoever finds this, humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our technology, it's our refusal to quit. Prove me right. Captain Hana, 2247. Ji-won stared at the date. 2247. That was 300 years ago, back when humans had just started exploring space on their own, before they met any alien species. This ship was from the early days, when humanity was alone in the galaxy and had no idea what was out there. He sat down in the co-pilot's seat, still holding the note. What had happened to Captain Hana? Why was this ship hidden in a sealed bay? Why leave such a strange message? As if answering his thoughts, the ship suddenly hummed to life. Lights flickered on across the bridge, and screens that had been dark for centuries began to glow. Ji-won jumped up, startled, but nothing seemed dangerous. The ship was just waking up. A voice spoke, soft and feminine, with a slight accent that Ji-won couldn't quite place. Biosignature detected. Human. DNA analysis complete. Welcome aboard. Who said that? Ji-won looked around the empty bridge. I am this ship's artificial intelligence. My designation is Cheonsa. I have been in standby mode for 297 years, 4 months and 16 days. It is good to hear a human voice again. Ji-won's mind was racing. AI systems didn't last that long. They needed regular maintenance and updates. How had this one survived for 3 centuries? Cheonsa, what happened here? Where is Captain Hana? There was a long pause before the AI responded. My memory systems were damaged during our final mission. I have many gaps in my data. What I can tell you is that Captain Hana and her crew discovered something important. something that the galaxy needed to know about. But they realized no one would believe them. Why not? Because humanity was new to the galactic community. We had just made first contact with alien species. We were considered primitive and naive. When you are the newcomers, no one listens to your warnings. Jiwan sat back down, trying to process what he was hearing. What kind of warnings? I do not have complete data, Cheonsa said. My core memory banks are corrupted. But I can tell you this. Captain Hana found evidence of a threat that had destroyed civilizations before and would do so again. She hid this ship and its data, hoping that someday when humanity had proven itself, someone would find it. Someone would listen. The mechanic looked down at the note in his hands again. Prove me right. What did that mean? What was he supposed to do? Cheonsa, can you show me what data you still have? Some systems need repair first. The ship has been dormant for a very long time. But yes, if you help me restore my systems, I can show you everything that remains. I must warn you, however, that once you see what Captain Hana discovered, you will carry a heavy burden. Jiwan thought about his small apartment, his boring job, his life that seemed to be going nowhere. Maybe this was why he had ended up here. Maybe all those rejections and disappointments had led him to this moment. Show me how to start the repairs, he said. Over the next hour, Cheonsa guided him through the ship's systems. Despite being 3 centuries old, the design was remarkably clever. Everything was built to be maintained and repaired with basic tools. It was the opposite of modern ships, which required specialized equipment for even simple fixes. As Jiwan worked, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. This ship needed him. Whatever Captain Hana had discovered, it was important enough to hide for 300 years. Important enough to leave a message for the future. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if anyone would believe what he found. But as he reconnected power relays and cleared dust from ancient circuits, Jiwan made a decision. He would restore this ship. He would uncover Captain Hana's secret, and he would prove that humanity's refusal to quit was more than just words on old paper. Outside the sealed bay, the station continued its routine operations. People worked, ships came and went, and life moved forward like it always did. But in that forgotten corner, surrounded by dust and old technology, something was beginning. Something that would change everything. 3 weeks had passed since Jiwan found the ship. 3 weeks of working his regular day shifts and then sneaking back to the sealed bay at night to continue repairs. He was exhausted, running on too much coffee and too little sleep, but he couldn't stop. Every system he brought back online revealed more mysteries. Cheonsa was unlike any AI he had ever encountered. Modern artificial intelligence systems were efficient but limited, designed to follow strict rules and protocols. Cheonsa was different. She learned, adapted, and even seemed to have something like curiosity. When Jiwan explained how modern technology worked, she asked questions and made observations that surprised him. Your current generation of ships is faster and more powerful, Cheonsa said, as Jiwan rewired a power coupling. But they are fragile. One damaged component and entire systems fail. The ship was built differently. Every part can work independently if needed. Jiwan nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. That's because Captain Hana's generation expected things to go wrong. They built ships that could be fixed with whatever you had on hand. Exactly. Modern engineers have forgotten that space is dangerous. They rely too much on everything working perfectly. As the days went by, more of Cheonsa's memory banks came back online. She began sharing fragments of what Captain Hana had discovered. Ancient structures at the edge of the galaxy. Warnings written in dead languages. Evidence of something that came from beyond known space. They called it the silence, Cheonsa explained one night, because when it arrived, civilizations went silent. No distress calls. No final messages. Just silence. Jiwan felt a chill run down his spine. What is it? I do not have complete information. But Captain Hana believed it was some kind of force that harvested advanced civilizations. It came in cycles, destroying spacefaring species and leaving only primitive ones behind. That's impossible. The Galactic Council would know about something like that. Would they? Cheonsa's voice was gentle but firm. The current galactic civilization is only 40,000 years old. The silence operates on much longer cycles. What if the Council's entire recorded history is just the time between harvests? It was a terrifying thought. Jiwan tried to focus on his work, but his hands were shaking slightly as he connected another circuit. The next evening, as he was preparing to leave his regular shift, his co-worker Minho approached him. Minho was younger, maybe 25, with the kind of eager energy that Jiwon remembered having once. They worked different sections of the station, but their paths crossed occasionally. "Hey, Jiwon," Minho said casually, but his eyes were sharp. "You've been working a lot of late shifts lately. Everything okay?" "Just catching up on some maintenance," Jiwon replied, keeping his voice neutral. "In Bay 17? The sealed one?" Jiwon's stomach dropped. "How did you—" "I checked the power grid reports. Someone has been drawing a lot of electricity from that section, and I saw you going that way last night." Minho crossed his arms. "What are you doing in there?" For a moment, Jiwon considered lying. But Minho didn't seem angry, just curious, and maybe a little concerned. "I found something," Jiwon said finally. "Something old. I've been trying to restore it." "Old equipment? Is it valuable?" "Not in the way you're thinking. Look, I can't really explain it without showing you. Can you keep a secret?" Minho hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, sure." That night, Jiwon brought Minho to the bay. The younger man's eyes went wide when he saw the ship, now partly cleaned and with lights glowing in some of its windows. "What is this thing?" "A ship from 300 years ago. Pre-contact era. It was hidden here, and I found it by accident." Minho walked around the hull slowly, taking in every detail. He was a mechanic too, so he understood what he was seeing. "This is incredible. The design, the construction. Why would someone hide this?" Jiwon showed him Captain Hana's note.
Minho read it twice, his expression growing more serious. "What does it mean?"
"Prove me right about what?" "That's what I'm trying to find out. The ship's AI has been helping me, but a lot of its memory is damaged." "The AI still works?" Minho looked impressed. "After 3 centuries? She's remarkable. Let me introduce you." Inside the ship, Cheonsa greeted Minho politely. The young mechanic was fascinated, asking questions about the ship's systems and design philosophy. Jiwon was relieved to have someone else who understood what they were looking at. But their good mood didn't last long. 3 days later, the station's administrator, a Velkrin named Korth, sent Jiwon a message demanding a meeting. The Velkrin were a species known for their business sense and their love of profit. Korth ran Hangar 7 like a corporate investment, always looking for ways to cut costs and increase revenue. Jiwon arrived at the administrator's office with a sense of dread. Korth was behind his desk, his forearms folded in a way that Jiwon had learned meant displeasure. "Mechanic Jiwon." Korth's translator rendered his clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. "I have noticed unusual power consumption in a sealed section of the station." "A section that should be empty. I've been doing maintenance without authorization. I pulled the records. Bay 17 has been sealed for decades." "What are you doing there?" Jiwon thought quickly. "I found some old equipment that needed to be checked. I was going to file a report after I assessed its condition." Korth's large eyes narrowed. "Equipment? What kind of equipment?" "Storage containers, mostly. Some old tools." "You are lying. Power consumption indicates something much larger is active in that bay." Korth leaned forward. "I will inspect it myself tomorrow. If you have found something valuable and tried to hide it, there will be consequences." That night, Jiwon and Minho worked frantically. Cheonsa had been running diagnostic tests on her weapon systems, and the results were alarming. "These weapons should not be possible," she said. "Not with 300-year-old technology. Captain Hana's team developed something that current science considers theoretical." "What kind of weapons?" Minho asked. "Directed energy systems that bypass conventional shielding. Projectile weapons with self-guiding capabilities that don't rely on computer targeting." The design philosophy was simple. If an enemy could jam your computers or disable your shields, you needed weapons that worked anyway. Jiwon examined the schematics Cheonsa displayed. The designs were elegant in their simplicity, but the underlying principles were advanced. Too advanced. Why would an exploration ship have weapons like this? Minho wondered. Because Captain Hana knew that what she discovered was dangerous, Cheonsa answered. She knew that she might need to fight to bring the information back. Did she fight? Jiwon asked quietly. I do not remember. That data is missing. The next morning, Korth arrived at the bay with 4 security guards. Jiwon and Minho stood in front of the ship trying to look casual. Move aside, Korth ordered. Administrator, I can explain. Move. They had no choice. Korth and his guards entered the bay. The Velkrin's eyes went wide when he saw the ship. What is this? Where did this come from? It was already here, Jiwan said. Hidden in the bay when it was sealed. Korth walked around the ship, his mind clearly calculating its value. This is old human technology. Pre-contact. There are collectors who would pay significant amounts for something like this. He turned to his guards. Seal this bay. No one enters without my permission. I will contact salvage experts to determine its worth. You can't do that, Minho protested. Jiwan found it. It's his discovery. He found it on station property while on duty. It belongs to the station. Which means it belongs to me? Korth's translator made the words sound even more cold and final. Inside the ship, Cheonsa had been listening. Her systems calculated the situation and made a decision. When the security guards approached the cargo ramp, the ship's defensive systems activated. It wasn't violent. No one was hurt. But suddenly the guards found themselves unable to move forward. Some kind of force field had appeared, one that pushed gently but firmly against them. They tried to go around it, but the field expanded to block every approach. Korth's translator crackled with angry clicking. What is this? Disable this immediately. Jiwan was as surprised as anyone. Cheonsa, what are you doing? The AI's voice spoke through external speakers so everyone could hear. Captain Hana gave me clear directives. This ship and its information must reach the proper authorities. You are not proper authorities. You are a profiteer seeking personal gain. I am the administrator of this station. I have legal authority here. Legal authority over station operations, not over classified human military vessels. That word, military, changed everything. The guards backed away nervously. Korth's skin color shifted, a sign of concern in his species. This is a military ship? There are no military markings. It was a classified mission. The markings were removed for security reasons. Korth looked at Jiwan. Did you know about this? Jiwan made a split-second decision to play along with Cheonsa's story. I was trying to verify the ship's identity before reporting it. That's why I've been working on it. It was a weak excuse, but Korth was already backing toward the exit. Military matters were complicated, especially when they involved humans. Despite being relatively new to the galactic community, humanity had proven surprisingly capable in conflicts. No one wanted to get caught stealing military equipment, even 300-year-old equipment. The data started coming back in fragments. Cheonsa's damaged memory banks released information slowly, like pieces of a puzzle scattered across 3 centuries. Jiwan and Minho sat in the ship's small bridge, watching as the screens filled with images and text that shouldn't exist. The first file showed a star map. It looked normal at first, showing the familiar spiral of their galaxy with marked trade routes and inhabited systems. But then Cheonsa zoomed out, revealing something beyond the edge of explored space. Structures, massive structures floating in the void between galaxies. Captain Hana's expedition was supposed to map uncharted sectors, Cheonsa explained. They were part of humanity's independent exploration program. Before full integration with the Galactic Council, they went farther than any human ship had gone before. The next image showed one of the structures up close. It was enormous, easily the size of a small moon made of some dark material that seemed to absorb light. The surface was covered in symbols and markings. What is that? Minho whispered. A warning beacon, Cheonsa said. One of dozens that Captain Hana found. They were placed there deliberately, by civilizations that no longer exist. More files appeared. The crew had spent months studying the structures, trying to decode the warnings. The symbols were in multiple languages, some that matched ancient texts found in archaeological sites across the galaxy, dead languages from species that had vanished thousands of years ago. But the message was the same in every language. A warning about something called the Silence. Jiwan watched as the reconstruction of the warning appeared on screen, translated into modern Korean. His blood ran cold as he read it. Every 50,000 years it came. The Silence emerged from the space between galaxies, a force of incomprehensible power and purpose. It swept across the galaxy, targeting advanced civilizations. Any species that had reached a certain level of technology was harvested. Their worlds went dark. Their people vanished. Everything they had built was erased. The primitive species were left alone. The animals, the pre-industrial societies, the beings who still looked up at the stars without understanding. They survived. They evolved. They eventually reached for space themselves. And when they became advanced enough, the Silence would return for them too. It was a cycle that had repeated for millions of years. Rise and fall, growth and harvest, over and over again. This can't be real, Minho said, but his voice lacked conviction. Something like this. The Galactic Council would know. They have records going back 40,000 years. Exactly, Cheonsa said quietly. 40,000 years. The warnings at the structures suggested the silence operates on 50,000-year cycles. Your current galactic civilization exists entirely within one cycle. You have no memory of the last harvest because everyone who witnessed it was erased. Jiwan felt sick. He thought about all the proud species in the galaxy, the ancient Velcrin with their 10,000-year-old corporations, the wise Thurlan who claimed to remember the dawn of civilization, the powerful Cortax with their massive fleets. All of them were children compared to the silence. All of them were living on borrowed time. More data appeared. Captain Hana had found evidence in the structures themselves, logs and records from the species who built the warning beacons. They had seen the silence approach. They had tried to fight. They had failed. In their final days, they built the beacons, hoping the next cycle of civilizations would heed the warning and prepare better. Did anyone ever defeat it? Jiwan asked. Unknown. The records are incomplete. But the fact that the warnings exist suggests that no one has. Each cycle, civilizations rise and flourish during the silence's dormancy. When it returns, they are harvested. The only survivors are those who haven't yet reached the stars. Minho was pacing now, his hands running through his hair. So what was Captain Hana's plan? Why hide all this instead of telling everyone? A new file opened. This one was a video log. The image was grainy, damaged by time and data corruption. But they could see a woman in an old-style spacesuit sitting in what looked like this very bridge. Captain Hana, she looked tired, not just physically exhausted, but carrying the weight of terrible knowledge. When she spoke, her voice was steady but sad. If you're watching this, you found my ship. I hope enough time has passed that humanity is established in the galactic community. I hope we've proven ourselves. Because what I need you to do requires credibility that we don't have now. She paused, looking off camera. We found the warnings. We confirmed them. The evidence is overwhelming. The silence is real and it's coming back. High calculations suggest it will return in approximately 300 years, give or take 50. Jiwan's heart skipped. 300 years. That was now. That was right now, Captain Hana continued. I tried to warn the Galactic Council. They laughed at us. Humans, they said, making up stories about galaxy-ending threats, trying to seem important. They dismissed every piece of evidence. They said the warnings were just mythology from extinct species who destroyed themselves through war or environmental collapse. Her expression hardened, but I saw their faces. The council members, the species who've been in space for thousands of years, they were scared. Not of the silence, but of what it would mean if we were right. Their entire civilization, all their history and pride would be revealed as just another cycle, just another harvest waiting to happen. She leaned closer to the camera. So I'm hiding this ship and this data. I'm leaving it for someone to find when humanity has standing in the galactic community. When a human discovery will be taken seriously. Find the structures, update the data, prove that the silence is coming, and convince the galaxy to prepare while there's still time. The video ended. The bridge was silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. 300 years, Minho said. She said 300 years. My calculations confirm Captain Hana's timeline, Cheonsa added. If the silence operates on a 50,000-year cycle, and the current galactic civilization is approximately 40,000 years old, then the next harvest should occur very soon. Within decades, perhaps sooner. Jiwan stood up and walked to the viewport. Outside, he could see the normal traffic of Hangar 7, ships coming and going. People working and living their lives, all of them unaware that everything they knew might be about to end. We have to tell someone, he said. Who? Minho asked. Korth is trying to claim the ship for himself. The station authorities will confiscate it. The Galactic Council won't listen to two mechanics with a wild story. Then we go to Earth, to the human government. And say what? We stole a 300-year-old ship and its AI told us about an extinction-level threat? They'll think we're insane. Cheonsa interrupted them. There is another option. The structures that Captain Hana found are still there. If we go to them, we can update the data. Get current readings. Perhaps find evidence that the silence is already approaching. That's insane, Minho said. Those structures are at the edge of the galaxy. That's months of travel, maybe years. With current ships, yes. But this ship was designed for deep space exploration. I can make the journey in 6 weeks, Jiwan turned around. 6 weeks? Captain Hana's team developed an experimental drive system. It's not faster than modern hyperdrives, but it's more efficient. We can travel farther on less fuel. They spent the next hour reviewing the data more carefully. Chianza showed them technical readouts from the structures, information about the silences patterns, and most importantly, the location of the warning beacons. As Jiwan studied the information, he noticed something. The beacons weren't just warnings. They were also something else: blueprints, weapon designs. The ancient species had been working on something before they were harvested. Something that might have been able to fight the silence. Chianza, what is this? The AI's voice took on a strange tone. Pride, maybe. Captain Hana saw it too. The ancient species tried to build a weapon. A defense system. They didn't finish it in time. They were harvested before completion. But the plans are there, encoded in the beacons. Could it work? Minyo asked. I do not know. The technology required is far beyond what existed in Captain Hana's time. But now, 300 years later, with modern advancements, perhaps, if humanity could convince the galaxy to try. Jiwan felt the weight of the decision crushing down on him. They could report everything and hope someone listened. They could ignore it all and go back to their normal lives. Or they could take the ship and go to the structures themselves, get evidence that couldn't be dismissed. The first option would likely result in the ship being confiscated and their story being buried. The second option meant potentially dooming the galaxy. The third option was dangerous, probably illegal, and would make them fugitives. If we take the ship, Jiwan said slowly, we can't come back. Not until we have evidence. We'll be wanted for theft. Our lives here will be over. What lives? Minyo surprised him by saying. Working maintenance on a dying station? Being ignored by everyone? I became a mechanic because I wanted to fix important things. This is the most important thing possible. Jiwan looked at the younger man with new respect. You understand what you're saying? We'll be alone. Just us and Chianza. No support. No backup. Captain Hana did it with a full crew, Minho said. We can do it with 2. The first week of travel was the hardest. Jiwan kept expecting pursuit ships to appear on their sensors, or for military vessels to intercept them. But Chianza's old experimental drive had one advantage that modern technology had forgotten. It was nearly impossible to track. While contemporary ships left clear energy signatures that could be followed across star systems, their ship slipped through space like a ghost. Minho spent most of his time studying the ship's systems, fascinated by the engineering. This is brilliant, he kept saying, pointing out design features to Jiwan. Everything has a backup, and every backup has a backup. Captain Hana really thought about survival. Jiwan was learning to pilot using the manual controls. Modern ships basically flew themselves. You told them where to go, and computer systems handled everything. But this ship required actual skill. He had to monitor fuel consumption, adjust course for gravitational fields, and compensate for stellar drift. It was exhausting and exhilarating. Chianza proved to be good company. Unlike modern AIs, which were strictly functional, she had developed something like personality over her 300 years. She told them stories about Captain Hana and her crew, fragments of memory recovered from damaged databanks. Captain Hana was different from other explorers, Chianza said one evening as they ate their simple meal. Most people went into space looking for resources or territory. She went looking for questions. She believed that asking the right questions was more important than finding easy answers. What kind of questions? Minho asked. Like, why is the galaxy full of ruins? There are abandoned cities on dozens of worlds. Dead civilizations everywhere. The official explanation is war or environmental collapse. But Captain Hana wondered if there was another reason. A common reason. And she found it, Jiwan said quietly. Yes, but finding the truth and making others believe it are very different things. By the second week, they had their first real scare. A patrol ship appeared on their sensors, moving through a sector they needed to cross. It was a Galactic Council enforcement vessel, one of the ships that kept order in the contested zones between major powers. They're scanning all passing ships, Chianza reported. Looking for something. Looking for us? Minho asked nervously. Possibly. Korth may have reported the ship as stolen. They held their breath as the patrol ship's sensors swept past them. For a moment, Jiwan was certain they'd been detected. Then the patrol ship moved on, continuing its route. How did we avoid detection? Jiwan asked. This ship's hull design is from before standardized scanning protocols were established. Their sensors are calibrated for modern vessels. We appear on their screens as space debris or a small asteroid. They were lucky, but it made them realize how vulnerable they were. One random inspection, one curious patrol captain, and their mission would end before it really began. The third week brought a different kind of challenge. They passed through a trading hub called Nexus Point, a massive station where dozens of species conducted business. They needed supplies, food, water, and fuel cells. The ship's recycling systems were good, but not perfect. We can't dock at the main station, Minho pointed out. Too many security checkpoints. There are independent traders who operate outside the main station, Cheonsa suggested. They ask fewer questions. They found a small trading post on the edge of the Nexus Point system. The owner was a Thurlan, a species known for their flexible morality regarding regulations. His name was impossible for humans to pronounce, so he told them to call him Trader Sam, a name he'd picked up from human customers. That's an interesting ship, Trader Sam observed, his 4 eyes examining their vessel. Old design, very old. Where did you get it? Family inheritance, Jiwan lied smoothly. My grandfather was a collector. And does your grandfather know you're flying his collectible around the galaxy? He's dead. How convenient. Trader Sam's species didn't smile, but his voice carried amusement. Well, I don't ask questions, and you don't tell lies we'll both pretend to believe. What do you need? They purchased supplies with what little money they had saved. Trader Sam threw in some extra rations for free. You boys look like you're on a journey, the kind where you might not find shops later. Take the extra food. Consider it an investment in future business. As they were loading the supplies, a voice called out from across the docking area. Hey, that's a pre-contact ship. Jiwan's heart sank. A human woman was walking toward them, her eyes bright with excitement. She looked to be in her 30s with short hair and the kind of practical clothing that said she spent time in space. Relax, she said, seeing their tense expressions. I'm not station security. I'm Suji, freelance explorer and historical researcher. That ship is incredible. I've only seen designs like that in museums. It's just an old transport, Minho said weakly. Suji laughed. Sure it is. And I'm just a tourist. She walked around the ship, examining it with expert eyes. The hull configuration suggests it's from the independent exploration period. Mid-2200s, the engine signature is unique. You've got something special here. Jiwan made a decision. Something about Suji seemed trustworthy. And maybe they could use someone with knowledge of galactic politics. Can we talk? Privately? They went into the ship. Cheonsa started to object, but Jiwan overrode her concerns. In the small common area, they sat down with Suji and told her part of the story. Not everything, but enough. So you found this ship on your station and its AI told you about some ancient threat? Suji looked skeptical but interested. I know how it sounds, Jiwan said. Actually, it sounds like dozens of conspiracy theories I've heard. Suji leaned back. The galaxy is full of people who believe in ancient evils and hidden dangers. Most of them are wrong, but not all of them, Cheonsa said through the ship's speakers. Suji jumped slightly. The AI talks. That's unusual for a ship this old. I am quite functional, thank you, Cheonsa said with what sounded like irritation. Can you prove any of this? Suji asked. The threat, the structures, the warnings? We're traveling to the edge of the galaxy to gather evidence, Minho explained. To the coordinates where Captain Hana found the warning beacons. That's months of travel into uncharted space. You could die out there, or find nothing, or find something and have no one believe you when you get back. We know, Jiwan said, but someone has to try. Suji was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the busy trading post. I've spent 10 years researching humanity's early exploration period. The independent exploration program was amazing. Small crews going into unknown space with limited resources. Most of them came back with routine surveys. But some never came back at all. She turned around. Captain Hana's expedition was one that disappeared. The official report said their ship was lost to a navigation error. But there were always rumors. People who said the expedition found something important. Something that certain groups didn't want revealed. You believe us? Minho asked. I believe that ship is real and that it was hidden for a reason. Whether the threat is real, that's another question. But I've learned that the galaxy has a lot of secrets, and the biggest ones are usually hidden by people with power to lose. So what do we do? Ji-won asked. You continue your mission. But you need to understand what you're up against. The Galactic Council isn't going to thank you for revealing an extinction-level threat. It would cause panic, economic collapse. Species would abandon cooperation and retreat to their home systems. The Council's power depends on stability and confidence. So they'd suppress the information? Almost certainly. Unless you provide proof so overwhelming that they can't ignore it. Even then, they'd try to control the narrative. Suji pulled out a data pad and started typing. I have contacts. People who owe me favors. Journalists who aren't afraid of controversial stories. Scientists who prioritize truth over politics. If you find real evidence, I can help you get it to people who matter. Why would you help us? Ji-won asked. You just met us. Because I became an explorer for the same reason Captain Hana did. I wanted to find important questions. And you're offering me the biggest question possible. Is our entire civilization living on borrowed time? She smiled. Also, that ship is historically priceless and I want to study it properly. They talked for hours discussing strategy and possibilities. Suji had spent years navigating galactic politics. She knew which species were likely to listen, which media outlets were trustworthy, and which officials might support them if given proper evidence. Your biggest problem is time, she said. If this silence thing is real and arriving soon, you can't spend months arguing with bureaucrats. You need to find the evidence, get it verified quickly, and push it into the public sphere before anyone can stop you. Will you come with us? Minho asked. Suji hesitated. To the edge of the galaxy? In a 300-year-old ship? That's insane. That's not a no, Cheonsa observed. Give me a day to think about it, Suji said, and to arrange my affairs. If I'm going to disappear into deep space, I need to set up some automatic messages so my contacts don't think I'm dead. They gave her the day. During that time, Ji-won wrestled with doubts. What if they were wrong? What if Captain Hana had been mistaken? What if they dragged Suji into danger for nothing? The warning beacons hung in space like monuments to dead civilizations. They were even more massive than the sensor readings had suggested, each one the size of a small moon, their dark surfaces absorbing light in a way that seemed almost hungry. As the ship drew closer, Ji-won could see the markings Captain Hana had documented, symbols carved deep into the ancient metal. There are 12 beacons in total, Cheonsa explained, her sensors working overtime, arranged in a geometric pattern around a central point. Each one contains warnings in different languages from different extinct species. Suji was recording everything, her equipment capturing images and data. This is incredible. These structures are evidence of at least 12 separate civilizations that reached space travel and then vanished. The archaeological implications alone are staggering. The implications are worse than archaeology, Minho said quietly. He was studying the translated warnings on his screen. They all say the same thing. The silence comes. It harvests. Nothing survives. They spent 2 days examining the beacons, collecting data, and verifying Captain Hana's original findings. Everything matched. The warnings were real. The evidence was overwhelming. But they needed more than 300-year-old data. They needed proof that the threat was current. Cheonsa, can these beacons detect incoming objects? Ji-won asked. They were designed to do exactly that. They monitor the space beyond the galaxy, watching for signs of the silence's return. According to Captain Hana's notes, they should still be functional. Can we access their data? There was a pause. Possibly, but the technology is far older than me. Millions of years old. The interface will be challenging. It took Suji's historical knowledge, Minho's technical skill, and Ji-won's problem-solving ability to finally crack the access codes. When they did, the data that flooded in made everyone on the bridge go silent. The beacons had been watching, waiting. And 3 months ago, they had detected something, movement in the dark space beyond the galaxy, massive energy signatures approaching from the void. The pattern matched historical records stored in the beacons. The silence had begun its return. 3 months ago, Suji said, her voice shaking. That means they're already on their way. Cheonsa ran calculations. Based on the speed and trajectory, the silence will reach the outer colonies of the galaxy within 6 months. The core worlds, including Earth, within 2 years. 2 years. It seemed like a lot of time, but Ji-won knew better. The galaxy was massive. Mobilizing defenses, coordinating between species, building weapons, all of that took time. Time they didn't have. We need to get this data back to civilization, Minho said. Now. But as they prepared to leave, something else caught their attention. The central point around which the 12 beacons were arranged wasn't empty. There was something there. A structure much smaller than the beacons, but far more complex. What is that? Jiwan asked. Chianza's sensors probed the structure. I believe it's the weapon platform Captain Hana wrote about. The one the ancient species tried to build before they were harvested. They moved closer. The weapon platform was incomplete, exactly as the warnings had indicated. But the design was there, etched into the structure itself, a blueprint that anyone with sufficient technology could follow. Suji was studying the plans with growing excitement. This is sophisticated. Really sophisticated. It's not a traditional weapon. It's more like a disruption field. Something that interferes with the coordination of the Silence's ships. Can it be built? Jiwan asked. With modern technology? Maybe. It would require resources from multiple species. No single civilization could do it alone. But together, she trailed off thinking. Together, the galaxy might be able to complete what the ancients started. They spent another day documenting the weapon platform, making sure they had every detail. When they finally turned the ship around and began the journey back to civilization, their small vessel carried information that could save the galaxy or cause its collapse through panic and chaos. The return journey felt different. They had proof now, real undeniable evidence, but they also felt the pressure of time. 6 months until the Silence reached the outer colonies, 2 years until it threatened Earth. We need to plan carefully, Suji said during one of their strategy meetings. If we just broadcast this data everywhere, there will be chaos. But if we go through official channels, it will be buried. So what do we do? Minho asked. We do both. We approach the human government first, give them the data quietly, let them start preparations. Then if they don't act quickly enough, we go public and force their hand. It made sense, but Jiwan worried about the time it would take. Every day they spent debating and politicking was a day closer to disaster. 2 weeks into their return journey, they stopped at another trading outpost for supplies. This one was smaller than Nexus Point, just a handful of ships and a few trading platforms orbiting a dead planet. As they were loading fuel cells, a news broadcast caught their attention. The reporter was a Velcrin, speaking in the clipped, translated tones that all their species used. Tensions rise as unusual readings are detected at the galaxy's edge. Several colonies report communication losses with exploration ships. Galactic Council officials say there is no cause for alarm, but some experts are calling for increased patrols. They know, Suji said. Or at least they're starting to suspect something is wrong. That's good, right? Minho asked. If they're already concerned, they'll be more likely to listen to our evidence. Or they'll be looking for scapegoats, Suji countered. Something to blame for the disappearances that isn't a galaxy-ending threat. As if to prove her point, another broadcast appeared. This one showed images of their ship, grainy and unclear but recognizable. Authorities continue to search for the stolen vessel that departed Hangar 7 6 weeks ago. The ship's occupants are wanted for questioning regarding theft of historical artifacts and unauthorized exploration of restricted space. A reward has been offered for information leading to their location. We're famous, Minho said dryly. We're convenient, Suji corrected. If the Council needs someone to blame for spreading panic about the disappearances, we're perfect targets. Conspiracy theorists with a stolen ship. Jiwan felt frustration building. They had evidence. Real proof. But instead of being treated as heroes bringing a warning, they were being painted as criminals and troublemakers. Maybe we should contact Earth's government now, he suggested. Before we get any closer and risk being captured. They debated for hours. Finally, they decided to send a carefully encrypted message to Earth's Department of Exploration and Security. The message included a summary of their findings, some of the data from the beacons, and a request for a secure meeting. The response came faster than expected. Within hours, they received a reply. It wasn't from the Department of Exploration. It was from someone much higher up. Admiral Taywin, the head of Earth's entire space defense force, acknowledged. Your data has been reviewed. It corroborates information we have been receiving from our own sources. Proceed to these coordinates for immediate pickup. This is Priority Alpha. Do not communicate with anyone else. They looked at each other in surprise. Earth already knew something was wrong. Their data wasn't just being taken seriously, it was confirming fears that military leadership already had. This is good, Suji said. This means we won't have to convince them from scratch. But something bothered Ji-won. If Earth's military already knows, why haven't they announced it? Why isn't the galaxy preparing? Politics, Chianza suggested. Perhaps they're waiting for more data before making claims that could cause panic. Or maybe, Ji-won thought darkly, they're preparing their own defenses and don't care about the rest of the galaxy yet. They followed the coordinates to a rendezvous point in a quiet sector 3 days away. When they arrived, they found a small fleet of Earth military vessels waiting. Not the massive warships that humanity had built in recent years, but smaller, faster ships designed for stealth and quick response. A shuttle approached their vessel, and Admiral Taewon himself came aboard. He was an older man, maybe 60, with gray hair and the kind of steady eyes that had seen too much. "So you're the mechanics who found Captain Hana's ship," he said, looking around the bridge with interest. "I'll be honest, when I first heard the report, I thought it was a hoax." "It's real," Ji-won said. "All of it, I know. We've been analyzing the data you sent. It matches information we've been gathering from the outer sectors. Ships disappearing, strange readings, colonies going dark." Admiral Taewon sat down, looking tired. "We've known something was wrong for about a month. We just didn't know what we were dealing with." "The silence," Suji said. "An extinction-level force that harvests advanced civilizations every 50,000 years. Yes. Your Captain Hana was right 300 years ago, and she's still right now." The Admiral pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. "We've been tracking the anomalies. They're moving inward from the edge, systematically approaching inhabited space. At current speed, they'll reach Earth in 18 months. 2 years, Chianza corrected. "My calculations suggest 2 years. Your calculations don't account for acceleration." "They're speeding up." Admiral Taewon highlighted several points on the map. 3 colonies have already gone completely dark. "Noes,"